The underdogs. High Admiral Vexus of the Xarian Empire stood on the command deck of the Celestial Dominance, his flagship and pride of the Imperial fleet. The vessel represented the pinnacle of Xarian engineering, a sleek, crescent-shaped behemoth with a crystalline hull that glimmered with embedded quantum circuitry. Behind his ceremonial mask, Vexus's four eyes narrowed as the sensor array detected the approaching human fleet. "What in the seven systems are those?" Commander Krell asked, mandibles clicking in what could only be described as disgust. The main view screen displayed what appeared to be a motley collection of mismatched vessels. Unlike the elegant uniformity of Xarian warships, each human craft seemed unique in its ugliness. Asymmetrical, covered in external pipes, cooling systems, and armor plating that appeared to have been welded on as afterthoughts. Several even showed visible signs of damage repair, with different colored metal patches covering what must have been previous battle wounds. "Those," Vexus replied, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonics of Xarian nobility, "are what the humans call their deep space defense fleet. Primitive, are they not?" The bridge crew chittered in amusement. The Xarian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past century, each with defenses far more sophisticated than what now approached them. This human resistance would be nothing more than a brief diversion, barely worth recording in the Imperial archives. "Open communications," Vexus ordered. "Let us offer them the standard terms of surrender before we vaporize them." The view screen flickered, and the image of a human appeared, female, by their dimorphic characteristics, with close-cropped gray hair and weathered features that spoke of decades spent in space. "This is Commander Lena Harper of the Earth Alliance vessel Perseverance," she said without preamble. "To whom am I speaking?" Vexus straightened to his full height of nearly 8 feet. "I am High Admiral Vexus of the Imperial 7th Fleet, conqueror of the Orion Arm, herald off." "Right, got it," Harper interrupted, glancing down at something off-screen. "Look, Admiral, let's skip the formalities. You're here to add Earth to your collection. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen." Vexus's inner eyelids flickered in irritation. No species had ever dared interrupt the formal introduction of an Xarian High Admiral. "Commander Harper," he said, struggling to maintain his composure, "your vessels appear to be held together with little more than adhesive and optimism. The Xarian Empire offers lenient terms to those who surrender without resistance. Your people could serve as a protectorate rather than a subjugated world." Harper's expression didn't change. "Interesting offer, but we've seen what happens to your protectorates. We'll pass." On the screen, a human in the background approached Harper and whispered something in her ear. She nodded. "Our sensors indicate you've deployed your quantum field generators," Harper continued. "Very impressive technology. Almost as impressive as the fact that you've positioned your support vessels in a standard Xarian defense formation, exactly as described in the tactical data we recovered from your scout ship last month." Vexus felt his blood run cold. The humans had captured an Imperial scout. Impossible. Those vessels were equipped with self-destruct protocols, specifically to prevent such occurrences. "You're bluffing," Vexus said, but a note of uncertainty had crept into his voice. Harper smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Transmission complete," she said to someone off-screen, then turned back to Vexus. "I've just sent the complete schematics of your flagship to every vessel in our fleet. We particularly enjoyed the section on your shield harmonic frequencies." Vexus cut the transmission with a gesture that was more abrupt than he would have liked. "Tactical analysis," he demanded. Commander Krell studied his console. "The human vessels are powered by primitive fusion reactors. Their weapons are primarily railguns and nuclear-tipped missiles. No quantum technology detected. Their strongest vessel has approximately 1/8 the firepower of our weakest cruiser. And yet they show no fear," Vexus mused. "Either they are fools, or they know something we do not." He made a decision. "Target the vessel designated Perseverance. Full quantum lance barrage. Let us see if their confidence survives first contact." The celestial dominance hummed as its primary weapon charge, then released a blinding beam of energy that cut across space toward the human flagship. To the shock of every Exarian on the bridge, the Perseverance performed a maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size and design. It rolled, presenting a narrow profile to the incoming beam. The quantum lance still struck, but instead of bisecting the vessel as expected, it merely carved a glowing trench along its hull. "Impossible," Krell whispered. "Our targeting systems are infallible." Before Vexus could respond, the human fleet opened fire. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in volume. Hundreds of projectiles and missiles streaked toward the Exarian formation. Most were intercepted by point defense systems or dissipated harmlessly against quantum shields. But not all. "Minor damage to decks 12 through 15, reported the damage control officer. They've somehow matched their missile detonations to our shield frequencies." Vexus slammed a clawed hand on his armrest. "Randomize shield harmonics. Deploy the fighter screen." The battle should have been over quickly. Instead, it dragged on for hours. The humans lost 7 vessels to the Exarians 2, but considering the technological disparity, this was an unacceptable exchange rate. Most disturbing was what happened when the humans lost a ship. Rather than allowing their defeated vessels to drift or explode, the humans deployed specialized craft that Krell identified as salvage ships. These vessels would rush in, often under heavy fire, to attach themselves to the hulks of destroyed human warships and tow them away. "They're preserving their wreckage," Vexus realized aloud. But why? The answer came 3 days later when the human fleet returned. The vessels that had been destroyed were back, or rather, new ships built from their salvaged components. The Perseverance now sported a patchwork of hull plating, some of it clearly Exarian in origin. Somehow, the humans had salvaged parts from the destroyed Imperial vessels and integrated them into their own designs. Over the next 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. The humans would engage, inflict what damage they could, retreat with their wounded and dead, then return with reconstituted ships that incorporated salvaged Exarian technology. Each iteration made them more dangerous than the last. Vexus found himself in the unprecedented position of requesting reinforcements. When questioned by Imperial Command, he could only report that the humans fought like no species they had ever encountered. "They don't build ships, they grow them," he explained to a skeptical superior admiral. "Each vessel is unique, evolving after every encounter. They're like technological parasites, absorbing and adapting our own weapons to use against us." Commander Harper confirmed this assessment during their next communication. "You know what the difference is between us, Admiral?" she asked, her ship now bristling with a mixture of human and Exarian weapons. "You build your ships to be perfect. We build ours to be fixable." The humans called it Operation Salvage. Their strategy was not to win battles in the traditional sense, but to extract maximum knowledge and materials from each encounter. They deployed specialized ships whose sole purpose was to recover technology and components from both their own destroyed vessels and those of the enemy. The turning point came when a group of human ships, designated by the Exarians as Scavenger Team 6, managed to capture an intact Imperial corvette. Within days, every human vessel suddenly demonstrated limited quantum shield capability. Vexus found himself in a war of attrition against an enemy that treated defeat as merely another resource to be harvested. The Empire had always relied on overwhelming technological superiority. They had no doctrine for fighting an enemy that could lose a battle yet emerge stronger. "They're not trying to win," Vexus finally realized during a strategy session. "They're trying to learn." By the time the first phase of the conflict ended, the humans had lost 23 ships, and the Exarians had lost 4, a ratio that should have spelled victory for the Empire. Instead, humanity now possessed enough Exarian technology to pose a genuine threat. Imperial Command issued new orders: withdraw, regroup, and prepare for a full-scale invasion. The humans had bought themselves time, but Vexus knew it was only a postponement of the inevitable. The full might of the Exarian Empire would crush this upstart species. Yet as the celestial dominance entered faster than light travel, Vexus found himself troubled by a question no Exarian had asked in centuries of conquest. What if we lose? The turning tide. 6 months after the first engagement with Earth's forces, High Admiral Vexus stood before the Imperial War Council, his posture rigid as he delivered his report. The situation has evolved, he admitted, the words bitter in his mouth. What began as a standard subjugation operation has become a genuine military challenge. The council chamber, a vast hexagonal room with walls of polished obsidian, remained silent. 7 superior admirals, each representing a segment of the Exarian Empire, regarded Vexus with expressions ranging from skepticism to open hostility. "You speak of primitives," said Superior Admiral John, her voice carrying the enhanced harmonics of one who had ruled conquered worlds for centuries. "Primitives who, by your own reports, utilize technology centuries behind our own." Vexus activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a human vessel, or what had once been human. The ship now bristled with a mixture of technologies, its original form barely recognizable beneath layers of adaptation. "This is the Earth vessel Defiance," Vexus explained. 6 months ago, it was a simple transport ship converted for military use. Today, it incorporates elements of Exarian quantum shielding, draconian phase cannons, and what our analysts believe to be salvaged components from at least 3 other spacefaring species. He manipulated the display to show a sequence of battles. The humans call this iterative design. They build ships not to achieve perfection, but to learn from failure. When one of their vessels is destroyed, they don't consider it lost. They consider it research. Superior Admiral Chorus, the eldest of the council, leaned forward. "How many vessels have we lost to these scavengers?" Vexus hesitated, then answered truthfully. 32 cruiser class or larger, 17 support vessels, 43 fighter craft. The chamber erupted in outrage, voices overlapping in disharmonious frequencies that made Vexus's inner ears ache. Only Superior Admiral Chorus remained silent, his ancient eyes fixed on the holographic display of the human ships. "Silence," Chorus finally said, and such was his authority that the chamber immediately quieted. "High Admiral Vexus, you have commanded our forces against these humans for half a revolution. What is your assessment of their capabilities?" Vexus straightened. "They are adaptive, resourceful, and utterly without honor in warfare. They do not seek glorious victory but incremental advantage. They have turned our own technology against us and demonstrated an uncanny ability to incorporate disparate systems into functional wholes." He paused, then added, "They also appear to have developed a psychological warfare strategy they refer to as the Ghost Fleet." At Chorus's gesture, Vexus expanded on this concept. "The humans have begun designating all their vessels with identical identification codes. When we destroy a ship called Spectre, another appears the next day with the same designation. Sometimes it's a new vessel, sometimes it's the original, repaired with salvaged components." "So they renamed their ships," said Admiral John dismissively. "A childish tactic." "It has proven remarkably effective at undermining fleet morale," Vexus countered. "Our warriors report disorientation and frustration when confronting vessels they believe they have already destroyed. Some have begun to whisper that the humans possess technology that allows them to resurrect their dead ships." On the primary human command vessel, now designated Spectre Prime after the original Perseverance had been destroyed and rebuilt 3 times, Commander Lena Harper reviewed the latest intelligence reports with her senior staff. "The Exarians are adapting," she noted, swiping through holographic displays showing enemy fleet movements. "They've modified their quantum shield frequencies to randomize on a microsecond basis. Our salvaged emulators can't keep up." Chief Engineer Marcus Chen, the architect of Operation Salvage, scratched his beard thoughtfully. "We expected that. The question is whether they've figured out what we're really doing." Harper raised an eyebrow. You think they still don't understand? I think they understand the symptoms, but not the disease, Shen replied with a small smile. They see us taking their technology, but they don't see why it works for us when it shouldn't. The why was humanity's secret weapon, not salvage operations or adaptive engineering, but something more fundamental. Unlike the Exarians, whose technology was built as integrated systems with proprietary interfaces, humans had developed their technology on open standards. Components were designed to be interchangeable, systems modular, and interfaces standardized. This approach, born of necessity on a resource-limited Earth, meant that human engineers could integrate alien technology into their systems with relative ease. The Exarians, by contrast, couldn't even integrate components from different generations of their own technology without extensive modifications. Have we secured the package? Harper asked, turning to Security Chief Natalia Volkov. Volkov nodded. The raid on Station Epsilon 9 was successful. We have the prototype. Harper's expression remained neutral, but there was a gleam in her eyes. Then it's time for the Scorched Nebula. The Battle of the Scorched Nebula would later be recorded in both human and Exarian histories as the turning point of the war. The nebula itself, a vast cloud of superheated gas and dust, had once been the site of an ancient supernova. Its unique properties interfered with long-range sensors and quantum communications, making it the perfect location for an ambush. High Admiral Vexus knew this, of course. The Imperial fleet entered the nebula in battle formation. Shields at maximum, weapons charge. What they couldn't know was that the humans had been preparing this battlefield for weeks. Contact, reported Commander Krell. Multiple human signatures, bearing 047. Only from one direction. Vexus asked, immediately suspicious, scan all vectors. Interference from the nebula is limiting sensor range, Krell admitted. But the signatures are clear. It's the Ghost Fleet. Vexus studied the tactical display. Something wasn't right. The human vessels were arranged in an unusual formation. Too exposed, too vulnerable. It's a trap, he said. But what kind, I wonder? He made his decision. Advance at half speed. Maintain formation integrity. Let them come to us. What happened next was so unexpected that initial reports were dismissed as sensor malfunctions. The human vessels, instead of attacking, began to break apart. Not from weapons fire, but deliberately. Sections of hull plating detaching, internal components spilling out into space. What are they doing? Krell asked, mandibles clicking in confusion. Before Vexus could respond, the released components began to move under their own power, thousands of small, independently mobile units swarming toward the Exarian fleet. Defensive fire, Vexus ordered, but the swarm was too numerous, too dispersed to target effectively. The tiny units, some no larger than a personal transport, attached themselves to the Exarian vessels. They weren't weapons, Vexus realized with growing horror. They were interfaces. They're hacking our systems, Krell reported, his voice rising in pitch. Quantum shields failing. Weapons offline. Engineering reports control systems compromised ship-wide. Across the Imperial fleet, the story was the same. The humans had developed a universal interface that could connect to and override Exarian systems. The Ghost Fleet had never been intended as a fighting force. It was a delivery system for this swarm of electronic parasites. On the bridge of the Spectre Prime, safely outside the nebula, Commander Harper watched as the Exarian fleet went dark, vessel by vessel. Transmission from the Celestial Dominance, reported her communications officer. It's Admiral Vexus. Harper nodded. Put him through. The Exarian Admiral appeared on screen, his usual composure visibly shaken. What have you done? He demanded. We've ended this war, Harper replied simply. Your vessels are under our control. Your crews are unharmed, but your weapons and engines are locked out. Vexus's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, an Exarian sign of extreme agitation. This is not warfare. This is theft. "This is survival," Harper countered. "We didn't start this conflict, Admiral. You came to our system with the intention of conquest. We've simply refused to be conquered." She leaned forward. "The device we've deployed is called a Universal Systems Interface. It's based on technology we developed centuries ago, long before we reached the stars. We call it open architecture. Every component speaks the same language, regardless of who built it." Understanding dawned in Vexus's alien features. "That's how you've been able to integrate our technology so effectively." Harper nodded. "Your empire builds beautiful, perfect systems that only work with other perfect Exarian systems. We build imperfect systems designed to work with anything. Guess which approach adapts better to the unexpected?" The silence stretched between them, representative of two fundamentally different approaches to technology and warfare. "What now?" Vexus finally asked. "Now we negotiate," Harper said. "As equals." In the aftermath of the Battle of the Scorched Nebula, the Exarian Empire signed its first-ever treaty that didn't involve unconditional surrender by the other party. The humans returned the captured fleet in exchange for recognition of Earth's sovereignty and a non-aggression pact. More significant were the cultural changes that followed. Within a decade, open architecture had spread throughout the empire. Despite resistance from traditionalists, young Exarian engineers studied human designs not for their power, but for their adaptability. High Admiral Vexus, rather than being executed for his failure as tradition demanded, was appointed as the first imperial ambassador to Earth. His initial reports to the Emperor contained an observation that would eventually become famous throughout known space. "The humans taught us a truth we had forgotten in our pursuit of perfection. It is not the strongest who survive, nor the most advanced. It is those who can best adapt to change. Their ships may be ugly, improvised collections of mismatched parts, but they embody a philosophy of resilience that we would do well to study. In the end, they defeated us not with superior firepower, but with superior thinking." When asked years later about the conflict, Commander Harper, by then Admiral Harper of the Earth Alliance, summed it up more succinctly. "They laughed at our ships until we owned their fleet. After that, nobody was laughing."